and welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to hear more content from me, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video. And also, if you're interested in a personal consultation, I do consultations on a wide variety of topics. Please check out the video description. I will leave my contact information there. Thank you. So today's video is going to be kind of a free talk based on my experience, and it's a topic that I have kind of loosely touched upon in a previous video that I made, which I will be linking in the description. It's called Obsessions and Unrequited Love in Astrology. Now, those of you who have watched that video probably remember that I mentioned an example of a person who kept dating the kind of women that were indicated by his 5th house, but his 7th house was showing a totally different partner archetype, and this person was wondering why he cannot find a wife. Okay. And this is actually something, it's not just based on one example, it's something that I've seen a lot of the times, and I haven't expanded on this topic properly in that video, so I figured I would do a separate video specifically about this. That the 5th house, okay, well, first of all, let me start by saying that there are different placements in a horoscope, different things, configurations, varga charts or divisional charts that indicate different things, as you may know. And when it comes to what you want in terms of relationship, in terms of romantic relationships, is shown by the 5th house, and also to some extent it is shown by the saptamsa chart, which is the 7th divisional chart. Okay, the saptamsa, you may have heard about it, is a chart that also describes children. Okay, it's kind of weird because it shows several things, so it doesn't just show one thing like children. Generally, it is the chart that you want to analyze when it comes to children, but it doesn't just show children. It also shows any 5th house matters, which is the house of romance also. So in other words, the saptamsa kind of shows what you want in a relationship, okay? And the navamsa, which is the 9th divisional chart, shows what you're actually going to get. Why exactly why it is like this, I'm not even sure 100%, but this is the way. Again, this is like the theories that were passed out from the sages. So this is what I stick to. But so what I have noticed oftentimes in connection to that idea of unrequited love, obsessions, etc., is that oftentimes people get caught up in the 5th house matters to the point where to their detriment in terms of finding a long-term partner, finding marriage, etc. And I'm talking especially about people who are dead set on finding a lifelong partner or a long-term partner to have children with, and yet they are stuck at the 5th house level. Like I mentioned in that video, I have this acquaintance who he is around 40 and asked me for my opinion about why he cannot find a long-term partner. And when I looked at his chart, he had Rahu in the 5th house by itself. Okay, Rahu in the 5th house tends to show an attraction to foreign partners. Okay, and this, however, remember that the 5th house is what you want. It's not necessarily what you are meant to get in relationships. That's actually shown by the 7th house, okay? And in this person's chart, there was no connection between Rahu or the 12th house, the 9th house, and his 7th house or partner dispositors like Venus, Darakarka, etc. In fact, he had Venus conjunct his 7th house lord in the 4th house, which to me was a clear indication that he was meant to marry someone from, his place of birth, okay? So someone originating from the same culture or from the mother's culture, or someone that the mother would introduce him to. And yet, this person kept dating women who were in their 20s, first of all, considerably younger. And he was around 40, like I said. So he kept dating these women in their 20s who were fun and would date him for a few months and then break up with him. And when he did get the opportunity to, date women who were like older or someone that his family would want to introduce him to, he would make up excuses or figure out some reason not to see them. Like, oh, this woman is divorced. Oh, this woman is like, she's 40. Or like, this woman is this and that. Sometimes he would actually go to the trouble of going on a date, but based on the things that he would tell me, it was pretty clear to me that this person didn't really consider the person that they were seeing as a potential partner. Like, they didn't even consider them. You know what I'm saying? So they already probably went to the date with the idea that, no, this is not the right person for me. And again, this person also happened to be religious. Okay, and so which was really funny to me because, on the one hand, he asked my opinion, but then he was like, yeah, never mind, I'm listening to God anyway. So, and again, I'm not claiming to know the mysteries of the universe, but I do know the things that I have seen over years of studying charts, okay? And so far, I haven't seen cases where people have successfully made relationships, like long-term relationships, with those that are with a partner that is not already kind of described in their chart. Okay, I haven't seen it. Now, to be fair, I know this sounds a little bit fatalistic, but again, astrology comes hand in hand with the idea of karma. You cannot believe in astrology, you cannot use astrology without accepting the idea of karma. And the reality of the situation is different people have different karma, okay? The fact that, for instance, you are not supposed to marry someone you truly want, that is also possibly due to past life karma. Some people are meant to marry people that they have some kind of a debt towards from previous reincarnations. And that's generally also shown by certain placements in the navamsa especially. So there are all kinds of cases, but generally when you look at a person's chart for long-term relationships, marriage, children, you want to look for the 7th house, because that's and here's the thing. 5th house is romance, okay? So 5th house is the lovey-dovey stuff, it's affairs, it's, the 5th house corresponds to Leo and the sun, which is the heart chakra, it's creativity. This is also why it rules children. So 5th house matters are connected to, passion, things of the heart, everything that you do from the heart. This is also why it rules hobbies, holidays, just anything you do for fun, for just the joy of doing it. These are shown by the 5th house, and the 5th house also rules the courtship, quote unquote, phase of a relationship. And here's the thing: the 7th house, now marriage, it's fine if the people going for 5th house partners, or the partners that their 5th house situation suggests, it's fine if these people understand that, okay, I'm only interested in a short-term fling and I only want the excitement and that's it. But if you want a serious relationship, you have to look towards the 7th house and the navamsa, okay? Because that is the kind of partner archetype that you are meant to find when it comes to long-term relationships. And again, you can try to push it, but generally I haven't seen it working out, okay? Now again, I'm basing this on what I have seen, okay? And I also mentioned this in a bunch of other videos. Like, for instance, you see these cases of people who have been together for a long time, then they get married and they divorce within 6 months. And generally, when you look at those people's charts, you don't see, for instance, love marriage happening. And love marriage, for those of you who are new to the concept, means that you are not meant to marry someone that your family chooses for you, or society chooses for you. Basically, someone that you meet, you fall in love with, and you develop a relationship, and you naturally reach the conclusion of getting married. So it's a mutual agreement. That's a love relationship. And actually, this is another strong indicator to support what I'm saying here, that to have a love marriage, one of the strongest indicators is having a connection between the 5th and the 7th house. Generally, when you see the 5th lord in the 7th in the 5th, the 5th and the 7th lord conjunct together, these are indications that you are meant to marry a person that you fall in love with, okay? Because the 5th house is affairs of the heart. But if you don't have these indications, of course, there are a bunch of other aspects that show love marriage as well. But these are the strongest ones. And at least the love relationships, the love marriages, quote unquote, that I have seen so far, all of them have some connection between the 5th and the 7th house. Like, the ones that are, like, people in my family, I know a couple who has been married for, like, 40 years, and they have a typical love marriage. People from different cultures, but they were born in the same country, blah, blah, blah. They met and got married based on their decision, and there was actually against some opposition from the families, and they're still married today, and they have, both of them have, I think one of them has the 5th and the 7th, or the other one, or they both have the 7th and the 5th or something. They definitely have a connection between the 5th house and the 7th house, okay? And I'm not saying this is like compulsory. I'm just saying that I haven't seen, I haven't seen charts where you don't have a connection between these and the people have been married for 100 years and they had a love marriage, okay? And here's the thing with the love marriage thing. It's like, love marriage literally means that, okay? So you develop a romance with someone and then that person becomes your spouse. But there are also other situations where it's kind of like almost in an in-between, you know? So it's not exactly that scenario. It's not like you meet someone and you develop. Maybe this person was recommended by a family member, or maybe you marry this person for material reasons. Those things can also be shown. But in these situations, so it's in these situations you cannot say 100% that it's an arranged marriage, but it's also not a love marriage, if you know what I mean, you know, because if you marry someone for pragmatic reasons and not because you're madly in love with them, that's not a love marriage, not really, okay? And these situations kind of in between, it depends on the horoscope, okay? There could be a variety of different configurations that could point to this. But in any case, love marriage, 5th house and 7th house have to be connected, okay? But when it comes to, what was I going to say? Right, the marriage thing. So marriage, think about it this way, right? So the 5th house is romance and fun and games and all that. The 7th house is, marriage is kind of like a business, you know? This is also why the 7th house is also a house of business. Because in a business, it's not just about the fun and games. It's not just about, you know, a leisure activities and how you spend your free time and going to the movies and all that stuff. It's also about responsibilities. It's about building a family together. It's about knowing, you know, each person knows their responsibilities in the relationship, right? You have to decide who is gonna take the kids to the kindergarten, who is going to, I don't know, do the cleaning, who's gonna do the laundry. If you, I don't know, if one of you is gonna do the laundry, or are you gonna hire a maid, etc., etc. How are you gonna manage your finances? How are you gonna decide where to spend holidays? Blah 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 blah. Who is gonna, you know, how much is each person gonna pitch in terms of taking care of the parents, the elderly parents? All this stuff, right? So it's more of a business, okay? That's why for marriage you have to think of it in terms of like it is a legal contract, right? And these are the relationships, ideally, that also show children, okay? Because in order to actually raise children, you have to have this kind of an arrangement of some kind of security, stability, and all that. And this is why, in order to have, like, the full, you know, the full package of, you know, love and marriage, like like the old 90s show, was it 90s or 80s with Al Bundy? Anyway, I think it was called Married with Children. Anyway, so to have all of that, you have to look at the 7th house. And what the seventh house is showing, okay, in terms of archetypes. And aside from this, you also want to look at the saptamsa and the D9 or the navamsa, okay? In the saptamsa, yes, and there is another thing. There is something that you want to look for. It's the seventh house from the Atmakaraka. So you have to look at the seventh house in the saptamsa, in the navamsa. You have to look at your partner dispositors. So if the ruler of the seventh house, but then also look to your Darakarka, where it's placed. Look to your Venus if you're a man, or Jupiter if you're a woman. And you have to look at all of these dispositors and where they're placed to figure out exactly the partner archetypes. And the saptamsa, again, will show what you want in a relationship. Right, and aside from all this, you also want to look for the seventh house from the Atmakarka. Okay, in both the saptamsa and the navamsa. And the seventh house will create a picture of the kind of partner you want. The saptamsa. Did I say the seventh house? No, the saptamsa. The saptamsa and the fifth house of the D1 or the natal chart. These are the main things you want to look for to see the portrait of the kind of person that you are attracted to. Okay. And of course, also look at your other partner dispositors in the D1. So, like I said, Venus if you're a man, Jupiter if you're a woman, Darakaraka, ruler of the seventh house. Where are they all placed? What aspects do they make, etc., etc. I've also talked about, I made a separate video talking about foreign spouse and delays in marriage, and that's where in the foreign spouse I talk about different configurations that you could have to attract a foreign spouse. And in the one that I did on delay in marriage, I also talked about, I think, the love marriage concept a little bit and got more in depth with different aspects and stuff. But I'm going to link those in the description. Anyway, so what I wanted to say is that you have to look for if there are common denominators between the fifth house situation and the seventh house situation. Okay. Or the saptamsa versus the navamsa, because if you don't see similar patterns, chances are that the person you are meant to marry is not going to be the kind of person that you might initially find attractive. Okay, so if you have the fifth house, for like I mentioned, right, in this example with the person that I mentioned, he had Rahu in the fifth house. Okay. So Rahu in the fifth house means that you tend to be attracted to people of a foreign background. But if you look at your seventh house, so unless Rahu aspects the seventh house Lord, Venus if you're a man, Jupiter if you're a woman, Darakaraka, so any of these partner dispositors, right, including the seventh house Lord, the seventh house Lord is probably one of the most important, right, because it is literally the house of marriage, right? So unless Rahu aspects these, also in the navamsa, you have to look at the same things, and also look for the seventh house or the seventh sign from your Atmakarka. If Rahu doesn't aspect these things, chances are you're not meant to marry a foreigner, right? So just to give you an example. So again, this is not to bum people out, but you need to think about it this way. Chances are that if you want a long-term relationship, let's say like in the example that I mentioned, this person was very convinced that he wanted someone to get married and have kids with. If you are in that position, then you should know, that, hey, your chart is promising you a certain type of person, and try to figure out ways to put yourself in the way of meeting that kind of a person. So I've actually mentioned to clients that I've had over the years that, for instance, I remember reading charts of people where I clearly, like I mentioned again, like in this example where, let's say, the dispositor is connected to the fourth house or the moon. I would mention, if your mother is going to be or someone from your maternal lineage is going to be willing to introduce you to someone, don't immediately say no just because you are, I don't know, you're going to think, no, this is not my type, or no, I'm attracted to someone else right now, which usually is shown by your fifth house. So don't immediately like discard opportunities, because you don't know, you could actually meet someone that maybe you don't find immediately attractive, but you might actually have a good long-term relationship and partnership with, okay? Depending on, of course, what the horoscope is telling you about your karma with regards to relationships. But this has been pretty much it. I don't really have examples on this topic because I don't know, I haven't like, I mean, I guess I could try to find examples, but it's kind of difficult to find celebrity examples on this. But in any case, you know, this is something that I noticed, and I think it's important to, it's kind of like, it cracks me up because it reminds me of that song from the Rolling Stones, you can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you get what you need. And it's kind of like that, because the 5th house is, again, it's your passions, is what you want, but the 7th house is kind of like what you're supposed to get in terms of relationships, and not just in terms of relationships. You can see these things about anything, things you want in general. This is why, for instance, when you see the 5th house connected to any other house, you will most likely get what you want in those areas. So like if you have 5th house in the 10th house, you will do something you like for a living. You will have the chance at some point in your life, you know. Of course, you also have to look at how these things are being activated by transits and by dashas and all that. But just to give an example, or you will be lucky somehow, you know, you're gonna at least semi enjoy what you're gonna do for a living, for example. Or if you have the 5th house connected to the 4th house, you will enjoy your early education, and maybe you will get a home that you really want, you know? So yeah, this is just a small parenthesis. And yeah, this has been pretty much it. Not to drag it on too long. So once again, if you've liked it, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video, and also please comment in the comment section with any feedback you want to give. And also thank you for watching the ads. Please continue to do so to support my channel for free. And once again, if you're interested in a personal consultation, I do consultations on a wide variety of topics. Please check out the video description. I will leave my contact information there. Thank you.